Currently, we're at the Cedar Memorial Park Cemetery in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. We're going to talk about the unsolved murder of Marlene Padfield. It's been unsolved now for almost 65 years. Let's get right into it. Marlene Ruth Padfield was born on October 28, 1941, up in Madison, Wisconsin. When she was about 6 years old, her and her parents, Hammond and Ethel Padfield, they moved down to Lisbon, Iowa. I'm assuming they moved for work, maybe to be closer to family. Who knows? So the family is living in Lisbon, a very simple family, living by simple means. The father worked at some kind of a factory, and the mother, she worked at a furniture store. They both worked in Cedar Rapids and lived in Lisbon. So Marlene, she was from what I've read online, to be one of these artsy kids. She didn't want to follow the simple path that her parents were kind of doing in their own lives. When she was in the 11th grade, she was going to high school, and she decided to finally just say, you know what, I had it, no more school for me. She dropped out. However, she did continue and finish her education. She went to what is now I know of as a continuation school. So she did get her diploma. And the reason why she quit school is because she wanted to be an actress. She had played in a play for her high school, and she liked it. She liked the applause that she got. She liked the adoration, people paying attention to her. It's that kind of psychology where a lot of people decide that they want to become actors or actresses. So when she's 17 years old, she decides for better acting opportunities, she wants to move out here to the big city, Cedar Rapids. And her parents, I don't know how much control they have over her, but they said, okay. So she moves out to Cedar Rapids, and she rents a room from a little old lady, not very far from where we're currently at. And to pay her bills, she got a couple of part-time jobs. One was that she worked at a department store as a clerk. The other job, she was an elevator operator. Yes, I am old enough to have seen one elevator operator in my life when I was about 4 or 5 years old. It was the weirdest thing. So she's doing both those jobs, and she's acting at this community theater here in Cedar Rapids. She originally fibbed and told the lady that owned the home that she was 21 years of age. In actuality, she was 17. And that's basically how she got by, was she told everybody she was an adult. Now, she's crossed in her life. She's not quite sure what she wants to do. There's many thoughts and ideas that's going through her mind at the time. She did take an aptitude test at some local community college here in Cedar Rapids. And she was bright. She had an IQ over 120. She was intelligent, outgoing, but mentally she was a wanderer. I guess back then they didn't really know how to handle those kids. I'm pretty sure if TikTok was around then, she'd be a huge TikToker, kind of something like that. And she would talk to vocational counselors, and she would tell them, hey, I want to, maybe go to school to study psychology, but I want to be an actress. Now, there's really only two main cities at that time where you moved to become an actor or an actress: New York and Los Angeles. But she's only 17. That would be a huge jump for her by herself to move from Cedar Rapids to opposite ends of the country. Now, maybe if she really was 21 years of age, she would have done it. But she's 17. Maybe it's easy to get away with lying about your age here in a small city in Iowa, but if you're going to California or New York, maybe that ain't gonna fly over there. So I suspect that maybe for now, She's gonna try to get into some plays or get some roles, and while she's doing that, she's gonna just keep working, paying her bills, and she's young, she's a kid, she's gonna figure it out, and when she figures it out, she's gonna go by whatever plan that she came up with. And if not, who cares? She's only 17 years old, though. Her whole life is ahead of her, or so they thought. Marlene was one of those types, kind of like myself, who seems to be perpetually bored. I can't say I'm perpetually bored, but I got social media, and she doesn't have it at that time. She seems like she's a big personality in a small pond. Maybe she just doesn't know how to go about releasing her wild horses. So at the time, while she's living here, she's dating a guy that she met that she likes. He seems like a nice guy enough. His name is Gary McHugh. He's 22. She's 21, so he thinks. I don't think he knows that she was really 17 years old. So we're going to go to February 9th, 1959. The little old lady that owns the home where Marlene is renting a room from, she pulls her to the side and says, hey, you gotta go. And she's like, what do you mean I gotta go? She's like, well, you're up, at all hours of the night, talking on the phone, laughing and giggling and doing stupid little girl things that old women like me hate. So I think it's best that you leave, because you're keeping me up at night and I'm tired of it. So Marlene, maybe she, says, please don't kick me out, but whatever. So she packs up all her stuff. She calls her dad and says, hey, come and get me. I just got kicked out. So her dad takes the family vehicle, picks her up, and they make the trip back to Lisbon. Now, she, by this time now, quit both of her jobs at the department store and working as an elevator operator. So she gets a job at J&T, a television repair center here in Cedar Rapids. She's working for him now for, I want to say, about a month or two, and she's doing his books and she's answering phones. And she's not 17, she's 21 years of age. So the owner of this television place, his name was John Harvey. He was a young guy and he had a young wife and she was 7 months pregnant. Young guy, probably running his dad's television business. Maybe his dad's tired of it, or he's teaching him the business or whatever. So on the evening of February 18th, 1959, she's getting off of work and her boss, John, says, hey, you want to tell your boyfriend, Gary, you guys want to come over and play cards? It's kind of something that older people do, but I don't know. I guess they played cards back then. So all four of them, they hop in John's vehicle and they go out to John's home and spend the evening playing cards. Just as things are wrapping up, she pulls John to the side. She's like, hey, when you drop us off at home, can you drop off Gary and then take me home? And he says, okay, I was gonna do that anyways because Gary lives in town and you live in Lisbon. She's like, oh, okay. Maybe she had asked her dad to pick her up, but maybe had a change of plans. So after things are wrapped up, they drop off her boyfriend at his parents' home, and then she tells him, hey, listen, do me a big favor. Take me over to the Cozy Inn restaurant. That's where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go meet up with a guy. Uh-oh, ain't none of my business, whatever. So she tells John that she's meeting up with a guy. His name is Arthur Charles Scott Jr. He's 19 years of age, and he goes to the Cole Community College here in Cedar Rapids, and he's a part of a theater group there. She had, I guess, seen him in a play, and she liked his acting, and she really wanted to join this little theater group. So I guess, she had asked him if they wanted to meet up to talk about arrangements for maybe her getting into the play or something, along the lines of acting. So he drops her off. Maybe right now it's around 10 o'clock or 10:30. And that night Cedar Rapids, it's pretty cold. As a matter of fact, it's very cold. That temperature for that day, the high was 14 degrees in the daytime. So she has a sweater and a jacket on. She hops out of his vehicle and enters the restaurant. According to eyewitnesses, her and Arthur, they sat around for maybe an hour or so. They were talking, nothing unusual, nothing crazy. And they leave. And Marlene never comes home. It's 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. She's still not back. It is very cold outside. She does not have a vehicle. Remember, the high was 14 degrees. It's going to get down to -2. If you've never been in that kind of weather, I have. It is skin blistering cold. It is painful. That is not any kind of weather that you want to be out with in the elements and not have a vehicle. So immediately they call the police, and the police, at first, they believed that maybe Marlene had ran away. Marlene had built some kind of a reputation in school of kind of being a wandering type individual, whatever the hell that means. And they attributed her disappearance to, she probably ran away to California to be an actress, whatever. They didn't really take it very seriously, but they did go ahead and interview John, the owner of the place where she worked at. They interviewed her boyfriend, Gary, and of course, they wanted to talk to Arthur Charles Scott Jr. Now, his first story was that when they left the restaurant, he went this way and she went that way. And okay, she was last seen walking down such and such street. However, as they're continuing talking to him about, I don't know, maybe an hour or two later, all of a sudden he says, you know what? Well, okay, so I did give her a ride, because she didn't have a car. Guys, it's frickin' freezing outside. So he says, well, okay, well, what happened? He said, well, we drove, and man, she started acting really, really weird and started like just acting funny and strange, like that girl's not in her right mind. And we started arguing, and she demanded to be let out of my vehicle. Okay, where'd you drop her off at? I dropped her off in Marion outside of this ballroom. It's like a dance hall or something like that. So they said, okay, what time around did you drop her off at that ballroom? It was like maybe 1:45 in the morning. So they go to the ballroom, and just by dumb luck, that night there was a dance, and the dance had let out around 1 a.m. So if you let out a girl in -2 degree weather, guys, you ain't gonna be that mad. You're gonna take that ride home. And they interviewed some of the people that were at that ballroom, and none of them ever remember seeing Marlene outside. Because you would think that, maybe she would ask somebody, hey, is anybody going to Lisbon by any chance? Nothing. So a couple days after her disappearance, some kids were playing off of Old Highway 30 over by, I believe it's called some creek. I don't know the name of it. So some kids, they're at like Old Bear Creek or something along those lines, and they find a jacket and a coat. Well, they call their parents, I guess. The parents called the police. Hey, did anybody, miss a coat? Well, they get the coat and the jacket, and they bring it to Ethel, Marlene's mom, and she said, yeah, that's my daughter's coat and sweater. Okay, -2 degrees, coat and sweater. Okay, well, now we got a bad feeling about what's going on. So we're going to fast forward to April 29th, 1959. Now it's already been about 10 weeks, and she still hasn't shown. So a farmer was walking with his dogs over like on a road. It's like a dirt road on the way from here to Lisbon. It's like a lover's lane. Kids from Cedar Rapids would go out there to make out or whatever. And he has a couple of his dogs, and one dog, he starts running from that direction over there. He's like running. And he has like a bone in his mouth. And he's like, boy, where'd you get that? He looks at that bone and, okay, didn't really think much, not much of it. And then his other dog is coming from that direction, and he has something in his mouth and it looks kind of weird. He said, what the hell is that? It looks like a bone, but it's not quite a bone. And he tells his dog to come here so he can give him whatever the hell he has in his mouth. And it's a human hand, and it's been rotted away, so there's no skin on it, but you can tell it's a human hand. So he takes it away from the dog, leaves it on the ground right there, and runs to his farm and calls the police. They come out there and they start doing a search of the area, and they find the skeletonized remains of what once was a person. They don't know who it is. They don't know what it is. Or, you know, not what it is, but they don't know who it is. Whose skeletal remains are they? So they take the remains. I'm assuming they took it to the county coroner's office, and a pathologist, you know, because it's just bones. There's nothing there. They don't know who this is. They don't know, you know, the identity, but they would quickly find out. So they got the medical records of Marlene and other people that have gone missing in the area, and they discovered that on one of the ankles of the skeleton was a fracture. And in her records, she had a fractured ankle when she was younger. And another sign that sealed the identity of those remains to be Marlene Padfield was that she had finger surgery, and there was a visible fracture or a crack in the finger. So I'm assuming that she had previously broken her finger and had to have it surgically repaired. They don't know what happened to her. They don't know how she died. They investigated it as a murder. However, they did not know if it indeed was a murder. So I think they marked it as a suspicious death. You have a suspicious death, you're pretty sure it's a murder, but you're not really sure. So they go back and interview everybody. Now, by that time, her boyfriend, Gary McHugh, had moved out to California and got a job at a cemetery of all places. He eventually comes back to Cedar Rapids when he finds out that her remains have been found. And I'm sure he's a suspect for a while, but they quickly, you know, determine that he is not who they're looking for. They talk to Arthur Charles Scott Jr., and his dad has a pretty good job. I believe his dad works as an executive for, man, I should have wrote this down. It was either Chevron or Chevy, one of those big companies, but his dad has a good job. And they tried to talk to Arthur. Originally, a newspaper reporter had talked to him and asked him if they would be interested in, or he would be interested in doing an interview. At first, he accepted, but then his mother comes, picks him up and says, my son's not gonna be talking to you, and the family lawyered up. And detectives, they don't have any proof if there's a murder because there's no bullet wounds in the skeletonized remains, the bones. There's no broken neck, broken vertebrae, nothing like that. I mean, more than likely, because there's really no, you know, soft tissue left, more than likely she could have been strangled, but they don't have any proof. They don't know. They don't know what happened. So they can't charge him with anything because technically there's no crime. This is the final resting place of Marlene Padfield. And this story, 65 years old, and still no answer to who is responsible for her murder. Now, a man by the name of Johnny Lee Cole, who was currently at that time, he was in a Davenport, Iowa jail. He originally confessed to this murder. He was in jail for a rape he committed, and he was looking at life in prison. So he said, like, oh yeah, I killed her. But the facts of the case didn't add up to his story, so they quickly determined that he probably, you know, he didn't know about the murder. whatever he knew was probably what he read at a newspaper. And then one of his friends had said that, yeah, he was trying to get the death penalty because he didn't want to be locked up away for life in prison. He'd rather, you know, hang in the gallows than to be sitting in a jail cell. So this is, next to her is her father. That's Hammond Padfield. And he died only 2 years after his daughter. I don't know where the mother is. I would assume this spot right here is supposed to be for her. So either she's here or she got remarried, or maybe she moved away. I'm not really sure. But I am sure of this. There is a creep, and I don't know where he is. His name is Arthur Charles Scott Jr. And if he is alive today, he would be about 82, 83 years old. And I'm going to assume that he got away with murder. He was the last person to be seen alive with this young woman. And only because there was no evidence, they couldn't charge him. Who knows? Who knows? If anybody has any information on this unsolved murder, because I'm calling it a murder right now, this is a murder. This is not a suspicious death. And a lot of the facts about the case are locked away in an evidence vault. They're waiting for the day that this supposed killer is going to come out and confess, and the killer needs to give them details about the case that the public would not know about. 65 years later, is that going to happen? Probably not. But if anybody has any information on the unsolved murder of Marlene Padfield, please call the Linn County Sheriff's Department. Numbers 319-892-6100, 319-892-6100. I'm Lamont. You know what it is. I'll catch up with you on the next video. Be good, y'all. Peace out.